They called me a hero. I never understood why. Heroes were loud. They stood tall in front of crowds. They smiled for cameras and spoke about courage like it was something clean and beautiful. What I did was neither clean nor beautiful. I was a soldier once, then a contractor, then something quieter. Someone sent where flags didn't matter and names were never written down. When wars needed to end without anyone admitting they had started, people like me were called. So when the alien woman walked into the reception hall of Outpost Helios and asked for me by name, I assumed it was a mistake. Aliens never asked for humans like me, not politely, not calmly, and never with fear hidden behind their eyes. The security field hummed softly as she stepped forward, tall, taller than most humans, but not imposing. Her skin shimmered like polished stone beneath the station lights, pale silver threaded with faint veins of blue. Her eyes were wide and dark, almost too expressive for a species that ruled half the Perseus arm. She wore no armor, no ceremonial guards flanked her, only a long dark mantle that marked her as someone important or someone desperate enough to abandon protocol. The room had gone silent. Marines stiffened. Translators whispered. Weapons didn't rise, but hands drifted closer to holsters. I didn't move. I just looked at her. She looked back at me, took a breath that trembled despite her obvious attempted control, and said the words that would change everything. Human, I came here because my daughter wants to see you. Not needs to, not demands to, wants. That single word landed heavier than any threat I'd ever heard. I blinked once, slowly. I don't know you, I said. My voice echoed a little too loudly in the hall, and I definitely don't know your daughter. Her lower hands tightened together, a nervous gesture, universal apparently. She knows you, the alien woman replied. That was impossible. I had never left human space in any official capacity. My missions were classified even for my own people. If an alien child knew my name, then something had gone catastrophically wrong. Explain, I said. Around us, officers exchanged uneasy glances. Outpost Helios was neutral ground, technically, a crossroads station where humans and non-humans traded, negotiated, and pretended the galaxy wasn't held together by old grudges and newer weapons. This was not part of anyone's schedule. The alien woman inclined her head, not in submission, but respect. My name is Salith of House Vera, she said. I serve on the High Cultural Council of the Kalar Dominion. That earned a reaction. The Kalar were ancient, powerful, proud, a species that believed emotion was a flaw and mercy a strategic error. Their council did not travel unguarded, their representatives did not walk into human stations unarmed, and they certainly did not seek out lone human operatives. I am not here as a counselor, she said. I am here as a mother. Something in her voice cracked, just slightly. I felt it then, the shift. The way the air changed when a situation stopped being political and started being personal. I'd felt it before, right before missions went sideways. Why me? I asked. Salith hesitated. Behind her calm exterior, something was breaking apart. Because, she said softly, my daughter is dying. No alarms went off. No dramatic gasp filled the hall. But the silence that followed was worse. I'm sorry, I said after a moment, but I'm not a doctor. I know, she replied. Her eyes never left mine. That's why I came to you. I frowned. You're not making sense. She is not sick in the way your species understands sickness, Salith said. Her body is failing because her will is. That sentence should not have made sense. But it did. Too much sense. She refuses nourishment, Salith continued, refuses treatment, refuses rest. Our healers say her body could recover, but her mind will not let it. That hit closer than I liked. And somehow, I said carefully, this has something to do with me? Salith swallowed. She has been watching your species, she said. Human stories, human recordings, battles, survivals, losses. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. She saw a file, Salith went on, one that was not meant for public access. Of course she did. She saw you. The station lights flickered faintly, as if the universe itself was leaning in. What file? I asked. Salith looked away for the first time. The siege of Neuraxis, she said.
My jaw tightened. Neuraxis wasn't a battle, it was a graveyard, a place where 3 allied species had been surrounded by a Dominion fleet and abandoned by their own command. And 1 human strike team had been sent to do the impossible. No survivors were supposed to exist, except me. She watched the footage, Salith quietly. She watched you keep moving when your armor failed, when your squad fell, when the atmosphere burned your lungs and gravity tried to tear you apart. Her voice shook now. She watched you refuse to lie down and die. I didn't respond, because part of me was still back there, on a broken world, dragging myself through ash and fire because stopping meant the end of everything. My daughter asked me a question, Salith said. Her eyes met me again. If humans can keep going when the universe wants them dead, why can't I? The words hit harder than any weapon ever had. I exhaled slowly. This was worse than war. Why, I asked. Why not a general, a diplomat, a hero from your propaganda feeds? Because she does not want speeches, Salith said. She wants truth. She stepped closer to the field separating us. She wants to know, she said, if humans are truly as strong as they seem, or if you are just very good at hiding how much it hurts. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, I knew something terrible and irreversible had already happened. I couldn't walk away. Where is she? I asked. Salith's shoulders sagged in relief. On our medical ark, she said, orbiting this system. I nodded once. Then take me to her. Around us, officers erupted into motion. Protests, protocols, warnings. I ignored them all, because somewhere out there was a dying alien child who believed humans had the answer to surviving pain.
The medical ark was nothing like a warship. No sharp edges, no weapon mounts, just long, sweeping curves and soft light meant to calm nervous minds. It floated above the planet like a promise that no one aboard intended to break. As we crossed the docking bridge, I felt it again, that familiar pressure in my chest, the kind that came before missions where you knew survival was optional. Salith walked beside me in silence. Her steps were measured, controlled, but I could hear it in her breathing, too fast, too shallow. Fear wears different masks across species. "This isn't the political stunt, is it?" I asked quietly. She stopped walking. "If it were," she said, "I would not have brought you alone." Fair point. The doors slid open without sound. Inside, the air was warm, heavily filtered. It smelled faintly metallic, mixed with something floral I didn't recognize. Medical tech hummed softly from recessed panels, advanced, elegant, terrifyingly precise. And in the center of the chamber, she lay still. Salith's daughter was smaller than I expected. Alien physiology varied wildly, but children always seemed fragile no matter the species. Her skin shared her mother's silver tone, but dulled, as if light itself struggled to stay inside her. Thin filaments of bioluminescent veins pulsed weakly beneath the surface. Her eyes were open, watching. She turned her head the moment she sensed me. Not startled, not afraid, curious. "That's him," she said. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but strained, like a sound pulled through too little air. Salith rushed to her side. "Yes, my light, this is the human." I stopped a few steps away, didn't approach, didn't smile. Children know when you're pretending. She studied me in silence, her dark eyes moving over my scars, my posture, the way I stood like the floor might vanish if I relaxed. "You look smaller than the recordings," she said. I almost laughed. "Most things do," I replied. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Salith gestured gently. "His name is—" "I know his name," the girl interrupted. Her gaze never left mine. "You were the last one moving on Neuraxis." The room felt colder. "You crawled," she continued. "Your left leg was broken. Your suit was venting. You left a trail." I swallowed. That footage wasn't meant for children. "It wasn't meant for anyone," she said calmly, "but I found it." Of course she did. She shifted slightly, wincing as machines adjusted around her. "You could have stopped. There were moments where no one would have blamed you." I nodded once. "I know." "Why didn't you?" There it was, the question that had followed me across decades and systems. I didn't answer immediately, because she wasn't asking like a historian.
I stayed. Not because I was ordered to. Not because Earth demanded it. I stayed because when a child asks you not to leave, you don't calculate outcomes. You sit. The medical arc drifted in silent orbit while the galaxy kept spinning like nothing had changed. I took the chair beside her bed, too small for me, designed for lighter bodies, and rested my forearms on my knees. Salith remained close but quiet, watching, learning. Her daughter, Ale, studied me the way soldiers study terrain, carefully, patiently. "You don't talk like the others," Ale said. "Others?" I asked. "The envoys," she replied. "The healers. The officials. They speak like everything is already decided. And I don't." "No," she said. "You speak like things might still break." I exhaled slowly. "Because they might." Ale nodded, as if that confirmed something important. "Tell me about Neuraxis," she said. Salith stiffened. "My light." "It's okay," I said gently. "I can." I leaned back, eyes unfocusing as memory dragged me somewhere colder. "Neuraxis wasn't supposed to matter," I began. "Just another border world. Low population, high mineral value. Strategically irrelevant." Ale listened without blinking. "When the fleet pulled out," I continued, "the council said it was a loss we could absorb." Salith's jaw tightened. "We arrived 6 days late," I said. "Too late to save the cities. Too early to stop the aftermath." I paused. "Do you know what silence sounds like after orbital fire?" I asked. Ale shook her head slowly. "It sounds thick," I said, "like the air is ashamed to move." Her fingers curled into the sheet. "We found survivors underground," I continued. "Children, elders, people who believed the council would return." I swallowed. "They were wrong." Ale's voice was barely audible. "Did you leave them?" "No," I said immediately. "We stayed until the last one stopped breathing." Salith looked away. "And then?" Ale asked. "Then command told us to extract," I said. "There were other fronts, other priorities." "But you didn't," she said. "No," I replied. "I didn't." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because someone had to witness it," I said. "Because if no one remembers, it happens again." Ale was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Is that why humans are dangerous?" I smiled faintly. "That's why we're inconvenient." She considered that. "My people believe suffering is a flaw," she said. "Something to be avoided." "Humans tried that," I said. "Didn't work." Ale's eyes stayed on me. "What did work?" I leaned forward. "Accepting it," I said. "Studying it. Learning what it does to you." Salith frowned. "Pain destroys." "Yes," I agreed. "But it also teaches." Ale shifted slightly, discomfort flickering across her face. "Pain taught us how to share warmth when there was none. How to ration. How to listen. How to show up when quitting made more sense." She swallowed. "Pain taught us which promises were lies." Salith's breath caught. "And," I added quietly, "it taught us that survival means nothing if you're the only one left standing." Ale closed her eyes for a moment. "When I'm scared," she whispered, "they tell me to be brave." "That's a mistake," I said. She opened her eyes. "Why?" "Because bravery isn't the absence of fear," I replied.
It's choosing what matters more. She stared at me. What mattered more to you? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said the truth. People who couldn't fight back. Her grip on the sheet tightened. You're not special because you're strong, Ale said slowly. You're special because you don't walk away. I felt something crack in my chest. Yes, I said. Salith finally spoke. My daughter believes your kind will change the galaxy. I hope not, I replied. They both looked at me. Changing things is messy, I continued. We're better at interrupting. Ale smiled faintly. I like that, she said. Interrupting. Her monitors beeped softly. Levels stabilizing. Patterns improving. The healers would later call it a statistical anomaly. I knew better. She wasn't healing because of medicine. She was healing because she no longer felt alone. After a while, she asked, Will they punish you for staying? Probably, I said. She nodded seriously. Good. Salith blinked. Good. Yes, Ale said. That means you chose this. I laughed quietly. Humans forget sometimes that children see everything. I'm tired, Ale murmured. I stood slowly. I'll stay nearby. She shook her head. Stay here, she said. When I sleep. I sat back down. As her breathing evened out, Salith turned to me. You didn't come because of politics, she said. No, I replied. You didn't come because of obligation. No. She lowered her head slightly, a gesture of deep respect among her people. You came because my daughter asked. Yes. Salith's breath broke. My people feared humans, she said. We thought you were unstable. I glanced at Ale's peaceful face. We are, I said. That's the point. Outside the Ark, distant fleets maneuvered. Councils debated. Threat assessments updated. None of it mattered. Because inside that quiet room, something had shifted. Not power. Not allegiance. Perspective. And somewhere deep in the galaxy's unspoken memory, humanity was no longer just a rumor of violence. We were proof that endurance could be gentle.
The council didn't react immediately. That was their first mistake. They watched. They analyzed biometric feeds from the medical arc. They reviewed my service record. They replayed the transmission Salith had sent, again and again, where her daughter asked, calmly, without fear, Can the human stay? To the council, that sentence mattered more than any battlefield report. Because children do not lie to survive. They lie to belong. And Ale had chosen a human. A closed session was convened within the hour. No banners, no observers. Just the old chambers, stone, crystal, and silence. The kind of room where decisions were made that never made the history books. This is an anomaly, one counselor said. Emotional imprinting, another replied. A temporary fixation, a third insisted. But no one sounded convinced. Salith stood alone at the center dais. No escorts, no ceremonial guard. She hadn't slept. Her eyes glowed faintly, dimmer than usual, like a star conserving fuel. My daughter is not confused, she said. She is precise. A counselor with chitinous limbs shifted. Children project strength on novelty. Salith's gaze snapped to him. Then why, she asked quietly, did she reject every general you sent? Silence followed. She rejected our finest tacticians, Salith continued, our most decorated admirals, even our healers. Her voice hardened. But when a human sat beside her, without command authority, without rank display, she stabilized. A hollow image appeared, Ale's vitals before and after my arrival. The difference was undeniable. This isn't medicine, one counselor muttered. It's psychological dependency. Salith nodded. Yes. They blinked. She depended on him, Salith said, because he did not treat her like a future asset. That landed harder than any accusation. Another counselor leaned forward. You're suggesting humans possess some kind of empathic weapon? Salith exhaled slowly. No, she said. I'm suggesting they possess restraint. That word rippled through the chamber.
Restraint was not valued in the galaxy. It was inefficient, unpredictable, dangerous. The human has a violent record, a counselor archivist interrupted. Confirmed kills, high-risk deployments, unauthorized mission extensions. Yes, Salith agreed, and yet he chose stillness. The room grew quiet. What if this is manipulation, someone asked, a long-term influence strategy? Salith raised her head. Then it's the first one built on patience instead of force, she said. That unsettled them. Because the council understood force. They understood fear. They understood deterrence. They did not understand presence. While they debated, I sat beside Ail's bed, listening to her breathe. She dreamed. Her species emitted faint harmonic tones during deep rest, soft, musical vibrations that shifted with emotion. The healers had once told me it was how their young processed memory. That night, her tone was steady, warm. She woke briefly and smiled when she saw me. You're still here, I said. Yes. They didn't take you away. Not yet. She nodded, satisfied, and drifted back to sleep. I didn't know it then, but across half the galaxy, a classification file was open. Species, human, threat level, reevaluation in progress. The Council's problem wasn't that humans were dangerous. It was that humans were inconsistent. We could destroy fleets, or sit quietly with a dying child. We could endure extinction, or offer forgiveness. We could be weapons, or witnesses. That ambiguity terrified them. A messenger drone arrived mid-cycle. No alarms, no escort, just a quiet arrival, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. Salith read the message and closed her eyes. They've requested your presence, she said. Arrest, I asked. No, she replied. Observation. I nodded. When? Now. Ail stirred. You're leaving, she said. Yes, I admitted, but I'll come back. She studied my face carefully, then reached out and wrapped her fingers around mine. You always say the truth, she said, even when it's heavy. I try. Then promise me something, she said. What? Don't become what they expect. I swallowed. I won't. She let go. The council chamber felt colder than I remembered, not physically, emotionally. Every surface reflected light without warmth. Every delegate watched me like a variable they couldn't model. I stood alone. No rank insignia, no weapons, no display. Just a human. State your purpose, a counselor said. I didn't request this meeting, I replied. Murmurs followed. You have influenced a diplomatic asset. She's a child, I said evenly. That silenced them. You were sent as military liaison, the counselor pressed, yet you acted independently. Yes. Why? I looked around the chamber. Because no one else stayed, I said. That answer disrupted something fundamental. One counselor leaned forward. Do all humans behave this way? I shook my head. No. Then why you? I thought of Neuraxis, of silence, of promises broken. Because I remember what happens when we don't. They exchanged uneasy glances. You're aware, the High Adjudicator said slowly, that your species' unpredictability places it under review. I'm aware, I replied. And you're comfortable with that. I met their gaze. If predictability is the price of safety, then no one is actually safe. The room went still. For the first time in recorded council history, no immediate ruling was issued. Instead, a new designation appeared on the holo display. Not threat, not ally, not subordinate. Humanity, status, unresolved. That word would echo through the galaxy. Because unresolved things don't go away. They wait. And somewhere in a quiet medical arc, a child slept peacefully, unaware that her simple request had forced an empire to hesitate. And hesitation, for beings who ruled through certainty, was the beginning of fear.
Earth didn't respond immediately. That was intentional. When the Council flagged humanity as unresolved, they expected a reaction, a diplomatic statement, a clarification, maybe even an apology wrapped in carefully chosen words. Instead, Earth went quiet. Not radio silence, not isolation, just restraint. No press release, no official address, no explanation. From the Council's perspective, this was deeply unsettling. Civilizations clarified themselves, empires reassured others, rising powers rushed to define their intentions. Humans did none of that. Instead, Earth rerouted a single civilian vessel toward the medical arc. No escort fleet, no warships, just a long-range transport carrying doctors, teachers, and one elderly woman with silver hair and tired eyes. Her name was Mara Klein. She had no rank. That bothered the Council. Salith stood beside me as the ship docked. Her posture was tense, not fearful, but alert, like someone standing near something powerful that hadn't decided what it was yet. You didn't send a representative, she said quietly. We did, I replied. She frowned slightly. She has no insignia. No, I agreed. She has experience. Mara walked slowly down the ramp, leaning on a cane she didn't need but preferred.
She looked around with mild curiosity, like someone entering a new library. Her eyes found AL immediately. She smiled. "Well," she said softly, "there you are." AL stared at her, then looked back at me. "She feels familiar," AL said. Mara knelt with effort, ignoring the protests of medical staff. "People always say that," she replied. "I ran a hospice on Earth. Children say it the most." That sentence hit Salith harder than any accusation ever could. Hospice. A concept the galaxy still struggled to understand. "You knew she was dying," Salith said. "Yes," Mara answered calmly. "So did you." The council representatives watched from a projection changer, disturbed by the lack of ceremony. There was no greeting ritual, no political framing, just a human woman sitting beside an alien child. Mara took A.L. Saren gently. "Do you want to tell me about your stars?" she asked. A.L. nodded. As they talked, something shifted. Not medically, not strategically, emotionally. For the first time, A.L. spoke without hesitation, not about pain, not about fear, but about memories, about flying creatures in her home sky, about the way her mother sang when she was small. Salith turned away briefly, overwhelmed. The council couldn't quantify this. They tried anyway. "Is this a containment strategy?" one demanded. "Cultural infiltration?" another suggested. "A morale weapon?" a third whispered. Earth's response arrived hours later. A single transmission. No emblem, no anthem, no flourish. Just a message. "We are not here to convince you. We are here because someone asked us to stay." That was all. The council demanded clarification. Earth declined. They requested operational parameters. Earth sent none. They asked if this represented a new diplomatic doctrine. Earth responded, "No doctrine, just a choice." That terrified them, because doctrines can be predicted. Choices cannot. Over the next cycle, something unexpected happened. Other species began sending observers, not to Earth, but to the Ark. Not diplomats, not soldiers, caregivers. They came quietly. They watched humans sit with the sick, speak plainly, listen without extracting advantage. No one had prepared for that. The council convened again. "This behavior undermines our power structures," one counselor said. "Yes," another agreed. "It makes authority look optional." Salith stood. "My daughter is at peace, and you are afraid of that." They didn't deny it. "Humans refuse to define themselves," the high adjudicator said. "That makes them dangerous." Salith met their gaze. "No," she said. "It makes them honest." That distinction changed everything. When A.L. passed, it was quiet. No alarms, no panic. I was there. Mara was there. Salith held her daughter until the end. A.L.'s last words were simple. "Tell them," she whispered. "Humans didn't come to save us." Salith swallowed. "What should I tell them?" "That humans came because they stayed." The funeral rites were attended by more species than any council summit in history. No banners flew, no speeches were given, just silence. Afterward, the council removed humanity's classification entirely. No threat level, no alliance tier, no strategic bracket. Just a note added to the galactic archive. Humans do not arrive as conquerors. They do not remain as subjects. They stay until they are no longer needed, and then they leave. Earth never corrected the galaxy's assumptions. They didn't need to, because every species that witnessed it understood the truth the same way AL had. Humans were not awesome because they were strong. They were awesome because they chose when not to be. And in a galaxy built on power, that choice changed everything.
Years passed. Not the dramatic kind the galaxy liked to record. No wars, no declarations, no sweeping changes written in bold text across star charts. Just time. The Ark was eventually decommissioned, not because it failed, but because it succeeded. The corridors emptied slowly, one farewell at a time. Species who had once argued over jurisdiction now argued over recipes humans had shared during long nights of waiting. Mara Klein never returned to Earth. She stayed until the last patient was gone. When she died, quietly in her sleep, the station lights dimmed on their own. No one claimed responsibility. No system log recorded the command. The galaxy simply agreed. Salith returned to her world a different person. She no longer spoke with the sharp certainty of an official. Her voice had softened, not with weakness, but with something far more dangerous to old power structures: perspective. In her first address after returning home, she said only this: We once believed strength was the ability to impose our will. We were wrong. Strength is the ability to sit with suffering and not turn away. That speech was archived, then copied, then quietly circulated through systems where council edicts never reached. And still, Earth said nothing. No monuments were raised, no chapters added to human history. When asked why humanity never publicized what happened on the Ark, an Earth official gave the simplest answer possible. Because it wasn't about us. That answer confused historians. It frustrated strategists. It unnerved admirals. Because civilizations built on legacy couldn't understand a species that didn't collect proof of its own kindness. Yet slowly something changed. When disasters struck, natural or otherwise, requests stopped going to the council first. They went to Earth. Not for weapons. Not for authority. For people. Doctors. Engineers. Listeners. Humans arrived without ceremony. They worked. They stayed. And when the crisis ended, they left behind manuals, training, and sometimes just a handwritten note that said, "You've got this." The galaxy learned eventually. Humans weren't unpredictable. They were consistent. They showed up when it mattered. And that was the thing no model could measure. Power could be quantified. Technology could be cataloged. Military strength could be simulated. But choice? Choice was invisible until it was made. Ailes' name appears once in the archives now. Not under medical records. Not under political impact. But under a single, quiet entry titled, "First Recorded Instance of Human Compassion Altering Galactic Policy." There are no embellishments. No dramatic language. Just a fact. And maybe that's why the galaxy finally understood. Humans didn't conquer the stars. They didn't need to. They changed them. By refusing to be anything other than human.
Decades after the Ark returned, the galaxy changed in ways no one had anticipated. Not with thunder, not with conquest, not with flashy displays of power. It changed quietly, subtly, in the margins, the places bureaucrats ignored, the corners of star charts labeled unimportant, the worlds where the council had once refused to act. Humans were there, not as conquerors, not as rulers, not as invaders. They were teachers, builders, listeners. A small outpost on a mining planet, barely on the maps, received a shipment of purified water in medkits. No logos, no flags, just the items and a note. We noticed. Stay safe. A student studying physics in a station orbiting a neutron star received a package containing handwritten equations. They weren't solutions, just questions, thought experiments humans had once considered. Curiosity is currency. Spend it wisely. Civilizations that had relied on intimidation learned patience. Mercenary groups recalculated the value of loyalty. Scientists began collaborating across systems that had been at war for centuries. Because humans had shown them something the galaxy had long forgotten. Influence wasn't about fear. It was about consistency, empathy, and resolve. And in quiet moments, those humans weren't even visible. No grand speeches, no announcements, no recognition. Just outcomes. The galaxy called it the human effect. At first, council archivists tried to suppress it. There were footnotes and disclaimers, but anomalies kept appearing, technologies spreading faster than they should, alliances forming without mediation, disputes ending before they escalated. It wasn't chaos. It was influence. It was subtle, but unstoppable. Even worlds untouched by humans directly began to feel it. Laws changed to favor cooperation. Trade flourished. Military actions slowed. Civilizations began thinking longer term, weighing consequences beyond their immediate gain. And somewhere deep in orbit around the artificial sun humans had built, Commander Elias Ward reflected on the ripple his species had caused. "We didn't come to change the galaxy," he told his second-in-command. "We came to remind it who we are. That's enough." The second-in-command nodded, looking out at the vast city structures etched into the planet shell below. And it seems it was more than enough. Elias smiled faintly, but his eyes were serious. "The galaxy believes it forgot us. It didn't, and it will never make that mistake again." And in that silence, in that quiet moment, the galaxy learned a lesson older than technology, older than war, older than fear. Humans endure. Humans adapt.
and humans show up when it matters. Not because they have to, not because they seek recognition, but because that is what it means to be human. And that is a power no one could erase.
Centuries had passed since humans first reappeared beyond the dark zones, and still their presence was felt everywhere, sometimes seen, sometimes only suspected. Alien civilizations whispered of them in council halls, in starports, in dark taverns orbiting dying suns, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as something far more dangerous, inevitable. The council had once believed isolation would erase humanity. They had thought removing Earth from maps, removing humans from history, would erase them from the galaxy's memory. It hadn't. It couldn't. Because humans had not only survived, they had rewritten what survival meant. They had transformed a prison into a laboratory, darkness into energy, silence into strategy. And now every decision the council made, every war they contemplated, every trade they tried to enforce was influenced by the knowledge that humans were watching, not through fear, through certainty. Ships moving in formation, satellites deploying silently across neglected sectors, engineers teaching entire civilizations to think differently. These were the tools of the new human diplomacy, subtle, calculated, relentless. Elias Ward stood on the bridge of one of the orbital command stations above the reconstructed Earth. Behind him, an artificial sun glowed warm and steady, casting golden light across the metallic surfaces, reflecting off the angular lines of the city structures below. "Do you think they understand?" his second-in-command asked. "Understand what?" Elias replied. "Us, humanity, what we became." Elias's eyes didn't leave the planet. His voice was quiet, steady, human. "Some will, some won't, but all will feel it. That is enough." Beyond the artificial sun, the galaxy stretched endlessly, and across that vast darkness, anomalies appeared. Trade routes recalibrated without explanation, borders realigned, alliances shifting without leaders noticing why. Every subtle change carried one unmistakable signature. Humans had returned, not to demand, not to conquer, not to claim, but to ensure that the lesson of endurance, patience, and adaptability was remembered. Even in the outer sectors where the council had once ruled unopposed, humans were quietly present. Listening posts in the void, disguised as ordinary stations, gathered data on cosmic threats, environmental hazards, and political instability. Every message sent back to the orbital command network was a thread. Every thread wove a pattern, a web of influence so precise that no civilization could ignore it, even if they tried. "They underestimated us," Elias said softly, almost to himself. "They thought survival would make us weak. They thought darkness would break our spirit. They were wrong." And as the light from the artificial sun danced across his face, he allowed himself a brief, rare smile. "We survived, we endured, we returned." And in that moment, humanity's presence was no longer a story whispered in fear. It was a reality every species in the galaxy would have to reckon with, because humans did not seek war. They did not seek domination. They simply existed. And in their existence, they reminded the galaxy of a truth older than empires, older than fleets, older than fear itself. You can erase a planet, you can erase a name, you can even erase a sun. But if humans survive, they will return. And when they return, the galaxy remembers.
The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Across the sectors where the council had once ruled, communications went silent, not because of malfunction, but because every signal now passed through the invisible web humans had woven. Every warp corridor, every trade lane, every strategic point of influence had been quietly observed, cataloged, and, when necessary, gently nudged. From a distance, the galaxy still believed humans were confined to the shadow of their artificial sun, still believed Earth was nothing more than a fortified legend. But humans were everywhere now. They were the quiet currents beneath every political tide, the unnoticeable factor that shifted outcomes before anyone knew a choice had been made. Elias Ward stood in the central command hall of the orbital station. Around him, officers, scientists, and strategists moved with calm efficiency, their focus absolute. The room was alive with quiet tension, a human tension, a mixture of anticipation, calculation, and the certainty of purpose. "They think we are gone," Elias said to his aide, a young officer named Mara. Her eyes, sharp and steady, mirrored the resolve of generations of humans who had learned to thrive in the dark. "They do," Mara replied, "but we are here, and they will remember." A holographic map flickered to life above the command console. Systems once under the Council's control shifted in real time. Trade networks adjusted, fleets rerouted, and anomalies, subtle, almost invisible, appeared across the galaxy. Each one carried a human signature, precise and deliberate. "It's working," Elias murmured, almost reverently, not by force, but by presence. For millennia, the Council had relied on fear. They had believed that power alone ensured obedience. They had calculated every possibility, every contingency, and yet they had overlooked one variable: humans. Humans did not fight to dominate. Humans did not fight for glory. Humans fight to survive, to endure, and to ensure that what had been stolen could never be forgotten. The Council, for the first time, felt that weight, not as an attack, not as a threat, but as a quiet, inevitable reckoning. Everywhere they looked, systems realigned. Entire civilizations began to reconsider alliances, strategies, and loyalties. The subtle influence of human endurance spread like a tide, inescapable, undeniable. "Do they understand?" Mara asked. "Some do," Elias replied, "and they will carry the lesson. Others will learn it the hard way. Either way, humanity will be remembered." In the orbital chamber, a transmission appeared, old, fragmented, from a Council fleet attempting to probe the shadows of human-controlled sectors. They expected war, destruction, chaos. Instead, they found precision, calm, and organization. Supply chains rerouted themselves, environmental hazards corrected automatically, and communication grids stabilized without human presence being directly revealed. "They've taken control without taking control," one officer whispered. How is this possible?" "Because humans don't need to conquer," Elias said, voice steady, almost gentle. "They endure, they adapt, and when the galaxy tried to erase them, they learned how to shape it instead." The Council realized, finally, that their attempts at erasure had backfired spectacularly. Humanity had not only survived, they had transformed adversity into strength, isolation into strategy, darkness into illumination. From the depths of space, across the sectors that had once feared them, a single truth emerged. You can try to erase humans, you can isolate them, you can deny them allies, resources, even light, but you cannot erase their will, you cannot erase their presence, you cannot erase their humanity. And as the artificial sun of Earth cast its golden glow across orbital stations and vast cities built into the planet's shell, the galaxy understood. Humanity had returned, not to demand tribute, not to wage war, not to conquer. They had returned to remind the universe of a truth the Council had forgotten. Survival is not enough. Endurance defines power, adaptation defines influence, and memory defines legacy. Elias Ward looked out through the observation windows, past the glowing spires and engineered oceans below, at the galaxy that had once tried to forget him. He smiled quietly, not with arrogance, not with vengeance, but with the calm certainty of one who had endured, adapted, and returned. "We are here," he said softly, "and we will not be erased again." The camera of the narrative pans out. Across the void, the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, is no longer the same. Humanity's return is not a storm, it is a tide, quiet, relentless, unstoppable. And in that quiet, the Council finally understood their mistake. Humans had returned, not as conquerors, not as generals, not as heroes. They had returned as the undeniable force of endurance itself, and the galaxy would never forget again.